This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Bailey Ober in the bottom of the third gave up a RBI double and a 2-run homer to go up 3-0, and then the Twins just got on the board 3-1. Your score right now in the top of the fourth in the lone game in action right now. We've got two more JVT that are going to get set to begin in a moment as we welcome you back to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158. We're live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. Going to break down what is a 17-game slate today because we have two doubleheaders. We already mentioned the Twins and Orioles that are underway right now, but the Cardinals and Phillies set to get underway in game one of their two games on deck today, and then the Brewers and Guardians coming up shortly.
Yes, and we are seeing the market move in favor of Jesus Luzardo and the Philadelphia Phillies. We saw this open minus 162 over at DraftKings. DraftKings is at minus 192. I am not the best at math, but I believe it's about a 30-cent line move there in favor of the Philadelphia Phillies. Luzardo on the year has been very good. 2.11 ERA, 2.32 fielding independent for our guy Jesus. And that is over the course of 47 innings, so a pretty solid sample size of work. And that flies in the face of a batting average on balls in play that's actually a little below average at 333. So Philly, with the way that they swing the bats against UNLV's own Eric Fedde, getting the start today for the St. Louis Cardinals. Fedde's actually been really solid. It looked like he kind of maybe discovered something last year, and here again, he is kind of carrying that over. 3.86 ERA, 4.11 fielding independent, but right now, metrics paint the picture of him being clearly the lesser guy. Now, I think in terms of total price and probability, does Fedde give his team a slightly better chance than what some spots are saying? Yeah, I think you can make the case. I think you probably at some point reach buyback in the range of like plus 160 or maybe a little bit higher. Some spots are at minus 180, plus 162. But I don't really want to run to back Fedde and expect that St. Louis is going to get this thing done. Maybe a first 5 under makes some sense, but nothing strong enough that made me run to the window here.
Okay, full game total sitting 8.5. Then we have that Brewers-Guardians game. Logan Henderson versus Gavin Williams head-to-head. Not too much juice on Cleveland at home, minus 122. Run total in this one sitting 8.5. That game getting underway in about 10 minutes. Anything stand out to you in that one?
Just that Gavin Williams stinks. I mean, you look at some of the numbers, right? 4.38 ERA, 4.64 fielding independent. The guy's been got. He has been hit pretty hard in some of his starts at times. Last two outings have been fine. The problem, though, is that he doesn't really give you, at least lately, has not given you a ton of length, hasn't pitched more than 5 innings in each of his last 3 outings. In one of those, he got absolutely toasted over 2 innings for 4 earned runs. That was against Minnesota. So it hasn't really been great. He's got 2 really bad performances in which he gave up 4 and 5. So you can kind of see a scenario in which he does go out there and eventually throw out some trash and get beat up. The other side, though, is Logan Henderson only making his second major league start. I don't really know too much about him. His first start was very solid. Went 6 innings in that start. Last time out, I think that was against the Athletics. Yeah, it was against the Athletics. So 6 innings pitched, 1 earned run. It was a solo shot. He struck out 9. He's got some pretty good stuff. Maybe he can match up well against the Guardians here today, but not enough for me to really feel comfortable either. So we'll see if maybe now that the majors have a little bit more film on his stuff, because that's like an old school handicapping angle, right? Guy making a major league debut, go out there and bet him because they're not familiar with him. That worked if you did it in his start against the Athletics, but the second time around, let's see what he's got.
Yeah, and the thing, too, about Gavin Williams, though, and his struggles, I'm just not sure Milwaukee is the team that can take advantage of it. Shut out each of the last 2 games, 5-2, 2-0, even just going through the string of last 6 games, 5 losses in that time. Like, look at the scores. They're putting up max 3 runs in those games. So
I agree. Like, there's times where there's like, I'll have a hypothesis of sorts, but I'm like, but do I really want to use like that team to test the hypothesis because that team kind of stinks or whatever it is. And so you sit back and wait for there's another opportunity down the road. So I completely agree with that assessment. Like, do you want to ask the Brewers to get it done when they're a team that just hasn't really done it at all?
Lots more action underway, though, this afternoon. So as you kind of went through the card, were there some pitching matchups or situational spots that caught your eye kind of as you were going through? I'm actually,
so there's quite a few today.
How can I parlay the Tigers again?
Yeah,
like, that's kind of what I'm consistently looking for. No, but what do you like?
Okay, well, that is on my list, so let's do that since it's the natural jumping off point, because Scooble's going to get the start here. 2.12 FIP, 2.08 ERA. Dobbins getting the start against him. 2.78 ERA, 3.37 fielding independent for Dobbins. Not something that I have been familiar with Dobbins. He's made 4 starts in his career up to this point, all 4 of them coming so far this year. And I haven't been too, I haven't watched him that much, so I don't really have a good thought on what he is going to be. But Scooble gets to start here today. You can lay the half run in the first 5 with Scooble if you feel comfortable. He has been dominant in his usual self. That's only about $1.30 price tag. Interestingly enough, our own Adam Burke, as part of his article today, actually went first 5 team total over 1.5, I believe, for the Boston Red Sox against the Scooble. And it's a very strong point, which is he has not, Scooble, faced opponents like the Boston Red Sox who can hit the way that they can. If you look at the teams that Scooble started against, it is a litany of bad offenses, right? Texas, the Angels, Baltimore, Kansas City, Milwaukee. So I do wonder what that's going to look like. And remember, the beginning portion of the year, Scooble did scuffle a little bit. In his first 2 starts, gave up 700 runs, and that was against Seattle and the Dodgers, 2 teams that lineup-wise, metric-wise, are near the top of the list. I think Seattle's kind of turning into a little bit of a pumpkin. Their offense stunk again yesterday, although they did snap their losing streak in extras. So I'm going to be interested to see. But I thought like asking Scooble and the Tigers to have a lead after the first 5 innings was at like $1.30, pretty fair, and you can cut into that price for the Detroit Tigers as well.
Okay, I like that angle. I think that run line for the game, -105.
You're running hot.
Is worth a look potential. I mean, they just keep winning. You know, maybe they're our Tigers now.
I was gonna say we've I think we've like at least handicapped every game of the series so far. We talked about them. I've got that exact Dodgers Tigers World Series lineup or CBF future at 35-1. So like I like this Tigers team a ton. They've been great, and their lineup is very, very talented. And we know that their pitching has been very solid too. And this series has been fun. We mentioned this in the first hour. If you didn't watch it, go back and watch the highlights of this game yesterday. I had it on with the basketball game. It was thrilling. And you get a walk-off from Javi Baez with 2 homers in the game. So series has been fun. Tigers have been great. And it's a good bounce back for the Tigers after losing the weekend series to the Rangers.
Yeah, I agree. So I like them tonight. I'm with you there. And the Mets run line didn't come through for us yesterday, but the Mets-Rangers parlay did. And so I could see maybe a Tigers-Mets parlay on the docket for me. Mets, you put those 2 together, -115. Mets against the Pirates again, one of the worst offenses in baseball, finding opportunities there. I know that's not a game that you had investment in, though, tonight. You were looking at that Rangers-Rockies game. What stood out there?
So there's 2 big favorites that I think are going to be really interesting to track later today. So Rangers or Rockies, obviously one of them. Rangers as right now, we saw this open -245. What are we up to? -225. So it's coming back down. Okay, so I agree with this. I put a play on the Rockies first 5 plus the half run. I think it was like +120, +115. I'll have to go back and look at the exact price. Here's the thing, though. Patrick Corbin's getting the start. I will say that I do think the Corbin thing this year, I think I brought this up to you in his last start, like there's this whole it's Patrick Corbin day. He's actually pitched very well. Having said that, he is due for some regression, one would assume. 3.13 ERA, 4.62 fielding independent, so a very big differential ERA and FIP. That's something you like to see. Senzatella is not really a bet-on guy. What I'm playing here is the fact that, look, the Rockies in this series have actually been fighting tooth and nail with the Rangers. Rangers needed a 2-run shot in the 6th inning. It was their first hit of the game 2 games ago against the Rockies to eventually pull it off. Yesterday, Josh Young gets a 2 or 3-run shot early in the game. They really do nothing the rest of the way. Offense has been kind of hit or miss in this series so far. And with the assumption that Corbin's going to regress at some point, the price seemed a little high. So I thought that going Rockies was a pretty interesting angle here.
For the first 5 or for the full game?
Yeah, first 5. Yeah, and the full game makes sense too.
It makes sense, but it's just it's hard when a team's lost 10 of 11 and is the worst record in baseball, historically bad. Like to back them. Granted, you're always going to get plus money, so if you pick your spots, it'll pay off at some point for you every now and then. Like I don't think a lot of people had them beating the Padres the other day, but they did.
Yep.
So sure, but I would much rather bet the Rockies on a first 5 bet than I would for a full game any day of the week.
Just go against Corbin.
Yes.
Here's the thing too, though. I mean, when you're talking about like this overall, and this is always the issue with like people who grind through these money line sports, you might have value. You're still asking the bad team to win.
Sure. Also the Giants, the Diamondbacks, just for lack of a better term, snake bitten at times with what happened to them yesterday. How do you feel about this one with Eduardo Rodriguez, Jordan Hicks on their respective hills here? Let me look at the updated price. So Arizona -108 on the road here in this one. San Francisco -112. Run total sitting 8.
So there was a time where I think you can make the argument Hicks is, and still, I mean, because of the results, I completely bet against pitcher, but there's some positive buy signs on Hicks here. 5.82 ERA, 3.17 fielding independent. Rodriguez has been a gas can. He hasn't really been that good. Even if he regresses, he's not going to be that great to back. And we saw him get lit up by the Dodgers in his last start. I think there's a strong argument to be made that the Giants are going to be in position here if Hicks starts to find a little bit of that regression, that they should be favored in this spot. I think the market's starting to head in that direction. And also a first 5 play would be warranted. Hicks, I think, deserves a better fate. And I think that he's worth kind of backing here at a cheap price.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm very upset with the Giants right now because they were my month of May selection. And it is not gone to plan for me at all. It is what it is. What do you make about the Atlanta Braves right now? Getting guys back, starting to figure things out a little bit here. Speaking of walk-offs, they had one the other day as well. Bryce Elder and Mitchell Parker head-to-head today. Am I right to like the Braves here?
I didn't really have anything on this one, so I will be honest. I put it to the side. But I will say this. The one game we should hit really quickly, if I could.
Dodgers?
Yeah. Just because Yoshinobu Yamamoto is getting the start again today. When Palm was with us last week, we talked about that, right? The fact that like the command hasn't really been there. The fact that he's kind of been scuffling a little bit. Diamondbacks absolutely blasted him finally. Like we got the bad start out of him. And you do wonder if maybe we start to see the small step backs here for Yamamoto. So I'm going to be very fascinated to see if the A's can get it done in this spot here or if he starts to struggle again. By the way, Roki Sasaki, injured list. We just saw that the other day, too.
Okay. Athletics, plus 230. Road dogs here. Dodgers, minus 285. Always a hefty price on them, especially at home. With that guy on the hill, over under 8.5 runs. Edge Boost, everybody. The first ever bank account built for bettors, ensuring any and all gambling transactions are approved. You want to learn more information, head over to edgeboost.bet. Use our promo code MONEY. Deposit $25. Edge Boost will match that deposit for you. Again, edgeboost.bet.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
What if I told you I have a bet nobody's thought of yet? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Okay, our wonderful producer here on Money Moves, Brian Ortega, is putting on his salesman cap, and he has a few bets that he wants to see if he can talk us into today. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're going to start in the NHL. Brian says, the Vegas Golden Knights, JVT, are on the brink of elimination, but you know they're better than they have played to this point, and the Edmonton Oilers' defense and goaltending can be had. Can you potentially see this team winning not only on the money line tonight, but covering the puck line, winning by 2 goals or more, plus 185 is the price, and force a game 6? Is that something you might be interested in?
I feel like no, right? Well, because here's the thing. We've talked about their offense, the hit or miss nature of it, the fact that it hasn't really been entirely consistent. I think the other part, and I don't know, look, the hockey strategist in me, you'd be able to answer this question that I'm about to pose. If you're Edmonton, generally, I think if this was an even series or anything like that, maybe you would be interested in pulling your goaltender, doing all that kind of stuff a little bit earlier than usual. But you're up 3-1 in the series if you're Edmonton. The urgency won't be there later to give the Knights the opportunity to have an empty net goal. Like you'll probably pull your goalie, but not like as early, maybe in a playoff series, whatever it is. So I don't think you'll have that strong opportunity either to get like an empty netter if you're only up by 1, whatever it is. So I think that probability goes down a little bit. So I'd say no. Is that fair?
I think that's completely fair. Yes, the Golden Knights, the Oilers even won on the puck line in the first game and the fourth game, but we've seen like closely contested ones, and Vegas will get up early in these games, and then Edmonton will come roaring back. The amount of goal scoring that Edmonton can have right now from anywhere is just such a concern for me in this Vegas defense, especially considering the fact they haven't been able to find cohesion and chemistry and ways to defend anybody, really. They've been rolling 4 lines, which has typically been the Vegas Golden Knights kind of calling card. So I feel bad. I don't have any real belief in Vegas tonight or in this series. I stayed off of the game altogether because sure, are they capable of winning? Absolutely. But will they do it is a whole other story. So prompt number 2 here, PGA Championship coming up this week. Brian says, we know, Stormy, you love Shane Lowry, but do you love him enough to take the lead after the first round at Quail Hollow? 55-1 is the price, JVT. We talked about this with Kelly earlier. I am curious how he's going to rebound from a tough weekend at the Truist. Oh, I guess we were talking about that off air. So for those of us listening here, I'm curious how he's going to rebound from the close call, another loss, always the bridesmaid, never the bride situation that Shane Lowry has been in lately. But he has gotten off to a lot of hot starts. So if he can have the mental, I don't hate it. Like, I could be interested in that. I'm far more interested in backing Shane Lowry in other ways because I do think he's in great form. And I do like him to be a top 20 finish. Like, looking into the numbers, third in strokes gained tee to green, top 6 finishes in 2 of the last 4 PGA championships. Even at the Masters, he collapsed on Sunday, but had a really good start. I could certainly be interested in the 55-1, but I'll be betting him in some of the other derivative markets instead.
Yeah, I feel like first round leader is kind of a crapshoot.
Sure.
Yeah, so maybe not. But as Kelly said, I mean, if it's going to rain during his round, I mean, why not?
Something about it.
He has performed very well in inclement conditions. He can do it. So, yeah, I'm not going to say no. Sure.
But and I could be off base, but do you agree with me that I feel like the numbers, whether it's first round or in outrights, don't necessarily match the season that he's had and how well he's been playing? And maybe it's just because he hasn't won. Like, it's been a few years since he's won a solo event.
Yeah. I think that's probably it. I think it's, as we talked about too, this golf course, I think, is so well suited to some of the guys at the top.
Sure.
With the way that they play and the dominance they've shown on the course, that you maybe get that skew because of how you're going to price some of these dudes at the top and the way that they've been playing coming into this, as well as how dominant they've been in terms of course history.
Okay, prompt number 3, to your bread and butter. In the National Basketball Association, a lot of hubbub has been made about the Dallas Mavericks getting that number 1 overall pick and the right to draft Cooper Flagg, but reports are saying the Mavs aren't going to trade that first overall pick. Would you be willing to take a flyer on Dallas to win it all in 2025, 26, 25-1 is the price?
Yeah, I think now here's the thing. I think generally at the end of the year, next year, if you were to tell me that Dallas is going into the playoffs, there's a dangerous team, I would understand that. But I also would argue that there's probably a better time to bet them once the season begins. Because remember, Kyrie Irving tore an ACL, not going to be available to start the year. Cooper Flagg is a rookie, so maybe he's not going to get off to the best start. But by the time you get to the end of the regular season, where Kyrie Irving is back on the floor, where Cooper Flagg has the whatever amount of NBA games under his belt and getting more comfortable and is playing is that well, in theory, this roster makes a ton of sense. When you have the center depth that you do, Cooper Flagg fits next to Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving running the show when healthy, all of that actually looks like a formidable group of guys that could be a really big pain in the ass in the Western Conference. So barring, Giannis coming over to the West, which again could happen and make the whole thing a lot more difficult, and not even for the Mavericks, just in general, I think that's a roster that really works and could be something very dangerous. So sure.
Sidebar, how much do you think that the NBA regular season matters? And I ask this question just based on what we're seeing right now with the Cleveland Cavaliers getting bounced. Like, are there some teams that need that seeding and others that just don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think that it is a dangerous thing to say that the regular season doesn't matter. I can point to 1,000 examples in past years of regular season series playing out identically in the postseason. When you would talk about opponents, the way they have matched up. I mean, this most recent NBA Finals, if you go back and watch the games from like an X's and O's and schematic standpoint, Celtics beat the crap out of the Mavericks the exact same way they played them in the regular season. So there's things that do matter. To the point of the Cavaliers, as we discussed, injuries are part of that story. If they're fully healthy, does the series play out exactly the same? Maybe not. Do they win it? Perhaps. But I do think to your overall point, yes, like you could argue, because in years past, home court has mattered much more in the postseason. This is a wonky year where this is the weakest we've seen home court in a long time.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's just, there's been so much about this NBA postseason that I don't know if anyone ever could have predicted the way that some of these games have played out. Sticking with the NBA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a favorite to win Western Conference MVP. But could Brian sell you on Anthony Edwards plus 275 or Nikola Jokic at 17-1 should the Nuggets come back to win the Western Conference Final MVP?
I mean, so is that the? Let me double check this. Jokic is 15-1.
15-1 now. Excuse me.
So 100% on Jokic if you think that they're going to win that series. If you are somebody that thinks the Nuggets can come back and win the next 2 games, and beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, then bet that 15-1 because that thing's going to get chopped down immediately. And I like you're going to be sitting on a great price. He is going to be the near favorite to potentially win that because, again, he is such a good player that he could still win it and lose the series if, that thing goes the way that we expect it can go. So, sure, I think at Jokic, that would be something worth looking at of the three that we're talking about here. Look, Boucher, I think that he is going to be the best player on the team that is favored in the Western Conference Finals, so you can never really go wrong there. And they're really struggling to get some secondary scoring out of all the other options, so it would make a lot of sense if you want to lay that kind of a price. But of all of these, I think Jokic would be the most tempting, only because if they pull it off, the odds are going to get once that series is set.
Okay,
right.
This last one I think is fantastic because Brian Ortega put this in our rundown today without any knowledge of your desire to fade the Minnesota Vikings this football season. With 2 international games and a probable first-year quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, would you be interested in taking the Vikings alternate win total under 6.5? It's plus 350. Their actual win total 8.5.
Okay, so first off, I denounce your phrasing of this. I denounce you saying that I'm looking to fade the Vikings. I presented the case for a long shot at 50-1, as is the premise of our Why Not Wednesday.
Yeah, but you only put him in there if you actually have the inkling to or desire to make the bet.
Correct? Or I think that is a reality that might be a little bit more probable than we think. I mean, like we're talking about here. Do you know what J.J. McCarthy is going to be?
Nobody does. So it's a fair point.
Correct, right? And again, we could sit here and say, hey, Aaron Rodgers this, and who was flirting with who, whatever it was. The point of the matter was, for a while, there was a possibility that Aaron Rodgers was going to be a part of the Minnesota Vikings. To me, that is an odd sign for a team that sounds full-throatedly behind J.J. McCarthy. And you're going to say you think it was more Aaron Rodgers than anything else. We did not get the full-throated endorsement of J.J. McCarthy throughout that entire process. There was thoughts happening on both sides of that thing. Now, I can understand the argument that you feel like you have a roster that is championship ready right now, and why risk throwing out we'll call him a rookie because he didn't play last year, into that point. But my whole premise here is that I think there is a reality, so obviously I would agree this is something I'd be interested in, that J.J. McCarthy is not particularly great. The division in the NFC around them is immensely challenging, and that this season goes south. And I thought Kelly put it really well when we were talking about this during the break. If I told you right now that they were the last place team in the NFC North, would you be surprised?
No, you wouldn't. But here's the thing, and I do think that the point is well taken about the Aaron Rodgers element of that. Maybe we didn't hear the full-throated endorsement from Kevin O'Connell and from people, but it's not like we ever heard any questions about J.J. McCarthy either from them. Like all throughout the course of the season, even with him injured, everything was about how positive they feel the future is for him, the way that he's coming back. There was never anything about Aaron either where they publicly said, oh yeah, we absolutely want to do this. This was Aaron holding out hope. And all of the reports that I saw coming out of Minnesota Vikings, like circles, were that was never going to happen.
Actions over words.
I don't think that if you're an organization, you feel the obligation to have to do something like that when you already know it internally. On that note, we got to take a quick time out. When we come back, more PGA Championship talk. ESPN's Reid Fowler going to join us coming up.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Von Tobel, Stormy, Buonantony with you back here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Remember, everybody, no better time than the playoffs to check out all of the sharp plays at sharpplays.com, where real bettors go to get ahead since 2011. Sharp Plays has been locked in on what the real pros are betting, bets that are actually moving markets. And when you sign up, you'll gain access to not only the plays, but all of Sharp Plays' powerful AI tools and betting reports, plus real-time alerts and updates via email or X. Perhaps most importantly, though, betting logs live and available each and every day on the site. Don't take our word for it. Check it out for yourself. When you head over to sharpplays.com, that's sharpplays.com. Back into some PGA Championship talk here. We're going to get underway at Quail Hollow from Charlotte, North Carolina tomorrow. And to help us break it all down, excited to welcome in Reid Fowler, broadcasting and betting analyst. You can catch him on ESPN Radio, PGA Tour Live as well. Follow him on X at Reid T. Fowler. And Reid, a lot of the talk that we have heard coming into this event is that it's kind of hard to look far down the board based on some of these top high caliber players and the way that they can bomb the golf ball off of the tee. How are you evaluating things from top to bottom here?
Yeah, Stormy, thanks for having me. And you're right. If you look at just the odds in general as well, an average of, let's say, the last 5 to 10 years, look, we've had the Phil Mickelson 250 to 1. We've had Jimmy Walker at triple digits. But for the most part, 45 to 1 plus 4,500 and shorter have been the average odds of the winner. And then to your point, when you take a look at Quail Hollow, the difficulty of that track when it's set up as a major course, or just in general, we see it as a Wells Fargo stop on the regular PGA Tour circuit, it ranks as one of the more difficult courses. So you match the difficulty of the course, the sort of the pomp and circumstance of a major tournament. And yeah, when you get guys who especially are trending, Stormy, right now at these numbers, especially really short on the board, it's tough to go away from that. But we always got to throw some darts, Stormy. We always got to throw some darts when it comes to a golf tournament, because anything can happen.
Reid, outside of the ability to drive and drive it far, what are maybe some key statistics that handicappers should be weighting for a tournament like this?
Yeah, quantitatively, you're going to want to look, obviously, when it comes to a major tournament, you have everything working, right? And I know that's an easy way. It's sort of a shortcut, if you will, really lazy analysis of, well, you have to have everything working. Well, of course you do, right? Like, of course you do. But getting more into the numbers outside of, yes, strokes gained tee to green needs to be there. Yes, off the tee, you need to bomb it, but you need to have it in the right areas. You don't necessarily need it in the fairway, but you need to miss it in the right ways. You've heard Rory McIlroy say, look, I want to bomb it, but some of these dog legs, it's a true Carolina course where it's tree lined, where you see other Carolina courses that we have on tour, like Sedgefield, like Kiowa, that was at, and that's more of a coastal, but for the most part, these Carolina courses are tree lined and then they dog leg. So the fairways hit is not necessarily that important. It's missing it in the right areas. But what I will say is you need to be trending or have a win. If you take a look at the last winners of a PGA Championship, their placement in previous tournaments, and again, this is a little bit lazy analysis, but it makes a lot of sense. You want to win. You want a top 5. You want to be trending, because when you get to a major tournament, when you get to the likes of trying to beat Scottie Scheffler, you need to have your best stuff. What I will say from a statistical analysis, obviously at Quail Hollow, is, like I mentioned, you need to miss it in the right spots. But when you're on those greens, you need to putt, right? You need to make those putts. You need to not get those 3 putts, obviously. But we look at guys like JT who have won here before, who have won in PGA Championships, +2, +1.8 strokes gained putting. That's going to be a big one as well.
So before we get more into some of the golfers that you do really like this weekend, I think sometimes it's a good exercise just to take some golfers out of the field and players that you don't like and you don't think are in form and you don't think match the course. Who are some guys, particularly in that upper echelon of odds, that you wanted to cross off of your card and didn't have interest in?
Yeah, one guy that I absolutely love, Stormy, that I bet and tout every week that I can is Collin Morikawa. And he was probably, and you hear it a lot from sort of my colleagues in the industry, is like the last cut, right? You're doing your betting card, and or the last, cross off is right now what I'm worried about. Look, there's nothing wrong with Morikawa. And now with a new guy in the bag, Max Homa's previous caddy, you think there's like a honeymoon period that could potentially come to fruition. And I've done this a lot, too, where I've said, I don't like Fitzpatrick at the U.S. Open, then he goes off and wins. So maybe you want to do it that way, where I'm crossing off Collin Morikawa. Maybe you want to put him on the betting card. But when you take a look at his weekend play, it's a little bit shaky, right? For whatever reason, there's something there that isn't exactly clicking. Could he win? Absolutely. But JT right around there at +2,200, +2,500. Obviously, Spieth, narrative-based. Like, he was really bad last week or the week before. I forget which week it was, where he didn't do that well. But going for the career Grand Slam, a lot of these places where you find these other players trending in that right direction, obviously JT with a recent win, those guys are more going to make the card as opposed to Morikawa, even though, look, if Morikawa is there in the top 5 on Friday or Saturday, like it's going to be, I'm going to be really mad at myself, but he's one of those guys there, Stormy, at the top that I'm crossing off. And then Scottie Scheffler, we always talk about it. Could he win a tournament? Of course, but way too short of odds to bet, right? There's no real value in that, in my opinion.
Reid, is there a golfer at all that you seem to be by yourself on, in your opinion, whether it's pro or like negative? Is there one that you just cannot find somebody that agrees with you on somebody in this field?
Well, one guy that I like that you may not hear a lot this week is Patrick Reid. You might because he did well at Augusta, but for whatever reason, I don't know why this is the case, and I actually love it because this is the case. It's kind of like if you bring wrestling into it. Patrick Reid is a heel. Right, he's been the heel on the PGA Tour. He did it when he had his first win, where he said it's him and Tiger Woods, and that's basically it on the PGA Tour. He's been a heel ever since he was on the PGA Tour. Then, obviously, when he went to LIV, that just exacerbated that whole personality. Well, now he's at 75-1, and it kind of fits the mold of what I like right now. But a lot of people, what they used to do is guys that they didn't like betting, they don't bet. And the reason why I like that is for whatever reason, right, these books will drift a number on a Patrick Reid. Like if he was at 50-1, 60-1, I'd still bet it. Now I'm getting 15 points of equity at 75-1, potentially in some spots it's higher than that, for a player who did really well at Augusta National. He's trending on LIV, and you could say whatever you want, but these guys, when they come to the major tournaments, they play well. And Patrick Reid, if it wasn't for some late round foibles on Sunday, he'd be right there on Sunday at Augusta, right in that winner's circle or near it. And we would potentially be talking about a Rory and a Bryson and a Patrick Reid playoff, which would have been really interesting to see as well. So P. Reid is one guy at 75. You may see some people because of what he did at the Masters, but for whatever reason, people don't like betting him because they don't like him, which we get equity on. So give me Patrick Reid at 75.
Okay, you mentioned some of those bombs. If you can get a long shot and see if he can make something happen, why not? What are the rest of the bets? We've got about 2.5 minutes left. Let's take us through your approach with this one, the names you like, and maybe any derivative markets, too, that stood out to you.
Sure. Patrick Reid's probably Stormy, and I know I mentioned triple digits. He's probably going to be my biggest dart, so to speak, at 75.
Okay.
Reason being is I want to put more equity, more units, so to speak, on the guys at the top of the market. Xander Schauffele, tough to not love Xander. Obviously, with what he did last year, what he's doing now, he's trending. He's one of the best ball strikers that we know. And just from a major standpoint, love him quite a bit. Min-Woo Lee. Talk about Min-Woo Lee, someone also in that 50 to 60 range. If you can find him there, he might have drifted a little bit down just because he's a popular bettor and people love betting Min-Woo Lee. I absolutely love him on a course where driver is a necessity. Like I mentioned, accuracy, not the biggest thing. We know Min-Woo can get a little dicey off the tee, but what we do know is that he can bomb it. And when you put him in a situation now where he has a victory under his belt, now you give him the confidence. We talk about Rory kind of opening the floodgates, right? This is, you kind of have to look down the market and say, okay, well, what other players can use something along those lines? Someone like a Rory, who now has this carefree attitude of I can win everything. Give him Min-Woo Lee as well. And one player that, Stormy, I may not like this bet, but it's too much value, is Patrick Cantlay. For whatever reason, Patrick Cantlay is coming up at around 50-1. And if he's at 50-1, now if he was below that, I wouldn't touch him just because he's been a little dicey on the greens. But at 50-1 for a guy who's a perennial top 10 player on the PGA Tour, who has major pedigree, who has been one of those players that we thought, okay, maybe he's one of the best players to not win a major. It was Xander, and now it's one of his boys, Patrick Cantlay. If he's sitting out there at 50-1, guys, and I love him for the derivatives, if you don't think he can win, a top 10, a top 5, at 20% of those odds, at a 5-1 or 10-1, to me, is a really good bet because Cantlay, you can see him kind of just sticking around. So those are the players that I really like. And obviously, give me first-round leader, Aaron Rai. Always give me that auto bet for Aaron Rai, first-round leader. He always comes out swinging early on. It might absolutely blow up in my face, but love Aaron Rai as a first-round leader. And actually, I do have one triple-digit guy that's just a dart.
We got hurry! Just say the name. We got to go to break.
Zalatoris.
Oh, you're the man. You're the man, Reid. Thank you for this. We appreciate you, pal.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Oh, how the turntables The Twins up on the Orioles now, all of a sudden, 4-3. Dean Kramer getting touched up a little bit here, JVT.
Yeah, as we talked about, right? Kramer not really anything special, wouldn't really run to go back him. And sure enough, we are over the first 5 total because you got 2 gas cans on the hill. Over, giving up the 3 homers, also walked 3, gave up 2 hits. And then you mentioned Kramer in 5, giving up 4 earned runs. Also got taken deep twice. So balls left the yard 3 times, high scoring affair so far, bottom of the 5th inning. And by the way, we might not be done yet, as the Orioles have runners on first and second.
Yeah, Twins were pre-flop plus 102 in this game, minus 175 now on the live line with that 1-run advantage. The run total for the game was 9, already at 7 there. Updated total sitting 11.5. Under is juiced minus 154, but those are some of your updated prices as it just locked out. So I wonder if something happened or is about to happen here in a moment. We will update you if that is the case. We also had some other MLB score updates for you. We are tied at 1 between the Guardians and Brewers, and scoreless here in the 3rd between the Cardinals and Phillies.
Yeah, nothing really crazy to report at this point right now. And I do think that we are going to get out of the inning. Yes, we are. So that's why we get pulled down there.
Okay.
Between Baltimore and Minnesota. We do have some news in Major League Baseball that is very much worth hitting on. This came down about 33 minutes ago. My brain is mush, so I can't remember if I mentioned this or not when we talked about the Mariners and the Yankees. But Mariners today put Bryce Miller on the injured list, elbow inflammation. Now, that matters for a couple of reasons, obviously. But the first of which is this is now the 3rd starter in about 5 weeks, Stormy, that has hit the injured list for the Seattle Mariners. This is a team that used 6 starting pitchers last year because their rotation was so healthy. So now, all of a sudden, attrition is starting to hit the Mariners' rotation in a very big way. Mm-hmm. They are also a team that we had discussed, right? Probably not like the strongest at the top of their respective division. I think there were some signs that the lineup was not going to be as effective offensively as it had started the season. We're starting to see that a little bit. Have had a little bit of a scuffling affair with the Yankees when it comes to their offense. Again, did get the win yesterday, 2-1 in extras, though. This is a big deal. I think that it's right on the heels of the article I wrote yesterday, betting the Rangers to win the American League West, or just you choose your weapon of choice in the American League West.
Yeah.
But the fact that Miller is now on the injured list, again, 2 other guys on this injured list, including Logan Gilbert, like that's a really big deal for the Seattle Mariners to lose another arm in a rotation that, when fully healthy, was and is one of the best in Major League Baseball, but they are not on the right side of the injury variance so far this year.
Yeah, they were 20-12 on May 3rd. They have since dropped 6 of their last 9 games. And like you said, I mean, it took a lot to get that win against the Yankees yesterday even. They have game 3 of that set with New York coming up later on this evening. And what is wrong with me today? I feel like every time I pull these up, okay, minus 105, the price for them at home with Luis Castillo on the hill, run total 8. But it's like every time I go to look something, I pull it up, I leave it right there, then I go to look at something else briefly, I come back and I can't find it anymore. But that's just the world that we live in right now. But absolutely worth noting there. And because you mentioned the Rangers in the article you wrote, what was the price when you wrote that article? Because I just saw plus 215, which I remember that number you gave out being larger than that.
It was, let me double check, because part of the reason why I wrote about it was at BetMGM, and plus 325 was the price. MGM was a little off market, and that's why I thought it was worth betting and discussing. I'll pull it up right now to see what the updated number is here. But yeah, I think at like plus 325, anywhere in that range to win that division, I think is definitely worth betting into. And it is now plus 225 over at BetMGM.
Yeah, so it's coming down, obviously. So people are agreeing with the mentality there.
I mean, this obviously changes it a little bit here, but I still think that there's a lot of buy signs on the Rangers in a division that, again, like look at it right now. It's a bunch of teams that is within like 2 games of 500. And I think they're all very close to one another. And I think the slide that we're seeing for Seattle is very real. Now, we should note that they are going to get guys back. It looks like George Kirby is expected to be back potentially about May 22nd. And we don't have an official time on Gilbert. But the problem with a guy like Gilbert and the problem with Miller hitting the injured list is what the injuries are, Stormy. We have, for Logan Gilbert, it's a right elbow flexor strain. Again, you never like to hear elbow or forearm tightness when it comes to these guys. Same thing with Miller. It's elbow inflammation. Again, something you don't really like to hear for the longevity of these guys in a season. So just something to monitor. And I thought this was a great point, too. This was brought up by one of the Seattle beat writers, Mike Vorel. As he points out, this is why the Mariners missing the playoffs in both 2023 and 2024 with the healthiest and best rotation in baseball is and was completely inexcusable. You know, we don't cover baseball the same anymore in the grand scheme of things, but I would argue over the last few years, if you're talking about the greatest failures of teams, when you're talking about not meeting expectations, not getting to where you should, the Mariners of the last 2 years would be on that list. It is absolutely ridiculous that they refuse to invest in their lineups enough to at least buoy a rotation that was absolutely incredible. And now you're finally getting the other side of the health variance, and we'll see. Maybe it screws them over again, and they miss the postseason once again.
We did also, real quickly, before we get to the best bets, get some breaking news in the National Football League.
Thank God.
No immediate betting impact, but I do think it just bears noting. Derrick Henry and the Baltimore Ravens reaching an agreement to a 2-year, $30 million extension, $20 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. Largest deal in NFL history for a running back over 30.
How does this impact Lamar's legacy?
Wait,
biggest choker in the playoffs.
You being serious? Yeah, it's a problem.
He was great in the game they lost.
I'm not saying he's the biggest choker, but I'm saying the numbers bearing out how many losses that they have in the postseason are a problem.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah. That's gonna be,
what's the other one?
That is going to be fun. That's going to be no for me, dog.
Yeah, so there we go.
That's a little tease for a segment we have percolating for you at home. But again, worth noting there, we're going to have the full NFL schedule, 272 games officially released later on tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern. So excited to see all those teams get the videos out and everything. And then tomorrow when we're on the air, we'll give our breakdown, any potential positions that could be worth noting for season win totals and depending on, rest advantages, disadvantages, those types of things. That said, we do need to get to our best bets presented by G-Bank, the official bank of Visa, and we both have a lot of them. So why don't you crank through yours first here, JVT?
All right. So best bets for me today, a lot of baseball. We'll go Rockies first 5 plus the half run plus 115. We discussed this. Yes, going against Patrick Corbin, there are some regression signs there. I think the market's just a little high in Texas. The wonderful lineup that I've discussed that does have some buy signs on it has kind of been scuffling around in this series so far. I think the Rockies have a better shot of staying inside of a half run in these first 5 against Corbin, who's got some regression coming, I believe, than plus 115 would indicate. So we'll go with that, and market heading in the Rockies' direction as well. We talked about the Tigers, and your Tigers, I think, we're adopting them. Yeah, I was going to say, I think we're adopting them to an extent. Tigers first 5 minus the half run at minus 130 with Tarek Skubal on the hill here against the Boston Red Sox. I think that's, again, just kind of cutting into that price. Skubal's been great. Lineup's been solid. Very back and forth affair the other day. But I think that asking Skubal to give this team a lead of at least 1 run, I think is going to be something they can manage. Giants first 5 minus the half run as well, plus 110 against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Some really solid, I think, regression signs potentially for our guy on the hill and Jordan Hicks. And Eduardo Rodriguez has been absolutely terrible. 6.86 ERA, 4.41 FIP. Meanwhile, Hicks, despite the fact that his ERA nearly 6, his fielding independent is actually just barely above 3. If he gets a little bit of better support and the balls don't fall the way they have against him, I think he's going to fare better at home in this start against the D-backs. So we'll back San Francisco here in this spot. And then the big play, we will lay the lumber at home with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay. Laid 10 against the Golden State Warriors.
I am going to be with you backing Minnesota, but instead of the 10.5, I'm going to take the Kelly Bidlin approach. I like what he said with that team total over 106.5, especially if a lot of what you're saying with Minnesota does come to fruition, and this could be a marginal victory. I feel like even still, 106.5 is a very reasonable number for them to get over in this one. So that's the way that I'm rolling there. I have a few golf plays. Shane Lowry, top 20, plus 180, the price there, which is a lot better than we've seen on a lot of these big events for him. He's usually been in that plus 120, plus 130 range for the top 20 prices, and we've cashed a lot of them in 11 events this season. He's got 2 runner-ups, 4 top 10s, 8 top 20s. Dive deeper into the numbers. 3rd in strokes gained, tee to green, top 6 finishes in 2 of the last 4 PGA championships. And I don't want to bet him in the outright markets, even at the high number, just because of him being close but never quite getting there. But top 20, I think extremely reasonable. Xander Schauffele, also even money for a top 20 for him. Kelly mentioned it, slow start at the beginning of the season dealing with a rib injury, which is very hard to play through. But as he's gotten more to form and the skill set matches everything on this course really well, only golfer to finish top 10 in each of the past 5 majors as well. So top 20 there. And then Rory, top 5. In the NHL tonight, I am doing that player prop parlay. Jack Eichel to have a point and Mitch Marner to have fewer than 2 points. I mentioned those game splits, games 1 through 4 compared to games 5 through 7 for Mitch Marner. Historically, the last 20 games, last 20 games, games 1 through 4 in the postseason versus last 8 in games 4 through 7. He's just a different animal, the way that he really, really struggles the back end of these series. Meanwhile, Jack Eichel is a facilitator extraordinaire, and all of the numbers and metrics, despite him being held off the score sheet last game, indicate to me that he will be getting another point tonight. So those are the way I'm playing it. Sorry, got 30 seconds left. I did also do a Tigers Mets moneyline parlay. Minus 115. Come on. Hell yeah, brother. G-Bank, by the way, treats most credit card transactions like when you're looking at these other entities as cash advances. G-Bank does not do that for you. If you want more information, get 3 to 5% cash advance. Save 3 to 5% cash advance fees on gaming transactions with G-Bank each and every day. vsin.com/Gbank for more information. I am cut off. Thanks for bearing with the voice. We'll be back tomorrow.